Hey everyone, welcome back to Branding with Bex. It's your host Bex here. We're back with Lizzie. Lizzie is also a content creator as well. She's been on the podcast quite a few times. We're really excited to sit down and talk to you today about the third place, which is why we need spaces in addition to work and home. We're going to really dive into this concept from sociology, talk more about why it feels like now we need a third place more than ever, and some history behind it and how you can use this to your advantage when growing your business on social media. Lizzie, if you want to give a little intro about yourself.
Yeah, so Becca and I, both content creators. That's kind of like how we met through Instagram. I have my own activewear brand. I'm a fitness instructor as well, and been kind of like dabbling in the whole social media game. So that has been fun. And yeah, we're here to talk about something a little bit different. I guess like more I wouldn't say like less serious than what we talked about, but it should be still a fun and interesting topic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. This was one that came up from social media, of course, where I saw this whole idea about what a third place is, and it actually really tied together a lot of, I think, what we're experiencing from social media right now. Ready to level up in 2025? Tune into Branding with Bex for insightful conversations, captivating guests, and practical tips. Whether you're on a walk, in the car, or getting ready in the morning, grab your headphones and let's dive into the world of branding together. We're actually going to start with maybe a little bit of recent news and then dive into some more information about the third place. A few things that Lizzie and I thought maybe you would want an update on is that local bar that was actually rebranded, was on Bar Rescue. We talked about it in a few episodes back. That bar actually has changed their name again. So at one point they were Hurricane Creek, then they became Neon Rodeo, and now they're actually going to a new name called The Creek and rebranding again. I personally think it's a good move for them because Neon Rodeo was not my personal favorite name of choice. I think this could open up, an opportunity to have like the new a little bit mixed with the old, not totally switch the overall aesthetic and vibe of the place. I think it does bring back the creek. It makes it a little bit more Florida, a little bit more rustic. And overall, I think it's kind of a smart move for them. But Lizzie, what's your feedback on that?
I definitely agree. If there's something about Florida is that you do not change what Florida means to Floridians. Florida, as much as we want to be a country, we just don't ever say anything like rodeo and especially not neon. I'm sure you've seen is that if you see a UF person, they are a diehard Florida person. So that kind of stems like through the whole state. Like we are diehard Florida with everything. And if you name something, people go by the name and like anything that hits home and make like Florida, Florida. So I've known restaurants where there are significant people to Florida, but they name it after themselves and their name doesn't really have that stick versus like the place. So like when people think of like Tim Tebow, it's not Tim Tebow, but it's like Tim Tebow and UF. And so we have like famous basketball players, but it's not just like Vince Carter, it's the high school that he came from. So I think people get more tied to the place as opposed to just the name. But the
Yeah.
name, like, well, like the person.
Yeah, and I think that this restaurant like had a very loyal following and
Mm-hmm.
people that were frequented there as like regulars. And I think with the initial name change, not the most support, I would
Yeah.
say, on social media in terms of what they thought of the new name. So I think that's kind of a good move for them. They can
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and rebrand it. I was wondering if there was like a time frame with when you're on the show to like how fast you
Mm-hmm.
can go ahead and do it, but it seems like they can just do it, which is great. So they have
Yeah.
the new sign up that went up on social media. That was exciting to see. And then another update is that Elf, so Eyelips Face, the makeup and skincare company, actually acquired Rhode today, which is a very famous company, Hailey Bieber's company. And I thought it was really interesting because Elf is more so known for like a great price. And then Rhode, I feel like, was a little bit more expensive in terms of the products wise. I personally don't have anything from the Rhode line, so I can't really speak to uh, that experience, but I do think that it was just a really interesting buyout. I think it was like $1 billion. A very interesting move. I'm wondering if it has to do with anything drama related from what's going on with Hailey Bieber right now, where she's looking to maybe exit the company. Who knows? I thought that was interesting, especially at a time right now where it seems like there's so much spotlight and focus on her. But what do you think about that?
That is actually really interesting. I did not know how much that I guess that company sold it for. I just remember when she first started her company, there was a big lawsuit going on because there is another company called Rhode, but they don't do makeup. It's a clothing line, and because of how famous Hailey Bieber was, is that people will now associate that name, everything to her, and it takes away from that clothing company. And they did like this whole lawsuit, and they ended up losing the, I forget the specifics, but they lost basically that first round, and they were saying that what Hailey Bieber is doing is different enough, and then they were saying like that we cannot compete with a celebrity. She's gonna take like the spotlight. So I don't know where that went. I just remember seeing that she went full send. I'm just gonna name it anyways. Like I think she offered to buy them out. They said no, and she just went anyways. Yeah, so I think it's interesting, and it's also she's been getting a lot of speculation with how her and Justin Bieber are doing. Sad for Justin Bieber, so I guess we'll see how that kind of story unfolds. But she did do a funny interview with Vogue where she was kind of making fun of herself and all the rumors that people are saying about her, especially with her being a stalker. And
Right,
yeah,
right. There's a lot of drama about that right now. That's definitely one of the theories people have out there as to how the two of them got together.
yeah.
And I just pulled up the press release, so it looks like it was a $1 billion deal comprised of
Wow.
800 million of consideration payable at closing in combination of cash and stock, and then 200 million came from the projected, I guess, future growth of the brand over the next 3 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, it says Elf Beauty found a like-minded disruptor in Rhode. It further diversifies their portfolio with a fast-growing brand, excited by Rhode's ability to break beauty barriers, fully aligning with Elf's beauty vision to create a different kind of company. Rhode is a beautiful brand that we believe is ready for rocket ship growth. So that's interesting. I'm curious what other companies that Elf also owns. Like, I wasn't sure if it was going to be more of like a merger situation where Elf
Mm-hmm.
bought out Rhode and then they became like, if Rhode's products then became Elf products or like something like that, or if it was like we just bought them and they're gonna still do their own thing.
Yeah.
But for $1 billion,
Dang.
I don't know how much say they're going to have in the Rhode company moving forward. So that was just really interesting news today. Didn't
Yeah.
really see that coming, but could be tied to all the drama that's going on. Could not. Who knows? But on another note, today we're going to talk about the third place. And this is all about why we need spaces beyond work and home. This concept is actually from sociology. So I think it does in a way tie into the podcast. I feel like I'm kind of reaching with some of these topics, or like this relates to social media, but it's fun to talk about. And sociology and studying people definitely is something that I would say relates to consumer behavior and social media. So it's important to kind of look at things from different lenses. And this was actually coined by a sociologist, Ray Oldenburg. A third place is that space in your life that's not home and not work. It's somewhere in between. So we're thinking cozy coffee shops, local libraries, community centers, your favorite neighborhood bar. And these places are where we connect casually across social lines without pressure, a very low-key vibe, welcoming, authentic. Oldenburg believes that third places were essential for public life, democracy, and human connection, and in today's fast-paced, hyper-digital world, they're disappearing. In this episode today, we're going to unpack what third places are, why they matter, how we can find or rebuild them to our own advantage for social media and brand building in real life. So I'm really excited to dive into this, and I think the first thing to kick it off with is really just to define the third place. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg said it was a social environment to exist outside of the home, which they consider home as the first place. Workplace, they consider the second place. And then the third place is more of the informal public gathering spaces. So I think this is a little bit different than something that's like a gym or something that's like a workout class, because it's not structured. So it's very casual conversations. Some examples are like a cafe, a coffee shop, parks, plazas, libraries, community centers, barbershops, salons, local diners, and pubs. And I think the difference between, so like home is like obviously your home life, and then second would be work or school, or where you're going either to make money or to learn. And then the third place is like that place for social well-being and community. And they argue that the third place is vital to healthy public life because it helps people form bonds outside of their private and professional roles.
Mm-hmm.
More and more, I think these are becoming rare, which is something that they're bringing up, and it kind of makes the conversation around them very important and also an opportunity to really tap into, especially as I feel like we're leaning more and more into the digital space. So, what are your initial thoughts on the third place, and do you feel like they're also disappearing?
Yeah, I was kind of like reminiscing. I was like, because I think we're also like that age group where we got a little bit of a taste of the third space, especially when we're younger. It
Hmm.
used to be a thing where we would actually go to the public library and meet up with each other. And I don't know if young people have ever thought, like, oh, let's go to the library and hang out and get a library card or whatever. But that's what we did. Places like Steak and Shake, we used to go to the rolling rink, all that. And
Even the
or just,
mall too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
The
that's right,
mall.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess we don't like, or no one really, you go with like a purpose, I feel like, and then
Yeah,
you just don't hang out. And
right.
it's interesting. And I think a lot of times people tie human interaction and they separate that from like home life, and I feel like people pride home and that private life, which is good and bad, because on social media sometimes it's not so private, people share everything, but then they kind of come home and they lock themselves like in a world, and it's like it's interesting. It's like you have a world of comfort, but then you detach yourself from wanting to speak and wanting to socialize. There was a book I was reading about people misplacing kind of like depression and social interactions, and they think that if they're around people less, they will feel better, but it's actually the opposite. Basic casual conversation is what will lighten your day. And I know like life gets crazy, people get, in all sorts of mood, but just going to the coffee shop, having casual conversation, like actually genuinely like, hey, how are you? I like, whatever it is. And I think people mistake those genuine interactions as like, oh, they need something from me, or like you only have to do something with a specific purpose. Or now I think society has turned into like, oh, if you hang around here every Saturday night, you're not doing anything with your life. Like, oh, they're here again. And it used to be like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this person. Like, where have they been? And it's such a weird shift and a weird change. But I think if we can bring back third places, it would make people, maybe people's social skills a little bit better, happier.
I totally agree. I think that what you just brought up was really interesting about you would go to a place just to go, like the destination was to do that activity. It wasn't, so now it's so, I feel like when you go to the mall or when you go shopping, it's like you're very laser focused on what you're going for. And then you go, you get it, you leave. Versus, I would say a lot now you see people just kind of running in or picking up an online order or doing curbside or whatever it is. So they're not actually interacting with too many people, even if it's just walking around and shopping the store. Like, I do think there's so much value in just doing that. I also think we have seen, like you're saying, and I think it's probably pushed from social media or whatever it is, but there's that idea of, oh, if you're doing this, you're not participating in this hustle culture. So you're not, working on your goals or whatever it is. And that toxic state of hustle culture, which I do think there is, kind of ebbs into just being and enjoying life and connecting with other people. Those little daily conversations are really important. Whether it can feel like, oh, I hope I don't run into anybody today or whatever it is, I
Hmm.
think that those actually do make a difference in your day. Something I noticed from coming from New Jersey to Florida is that there's definitely more casual conversation down here than there is up in New Jersey. I would say when you're going into a store, you're like beelining it from point A to point B. People aren't really like chatting it up with you, even if they're just like even a cashier at a store. It just was very, everything's very quick and very fast paced up there, and I think it was very different coming down here where, or even really just the South in general, I felt like there was more of a nice, homey, we're not in a rush vibe that I get. Even whether it be like, even if I'm interacting with a server at a restaurant or whatever it is, I don't feel as like rushed versus sometimes in New Jersey, there was that like consistent like go 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 mentality, which I think probably had to do with being like in between Philly and New York City. You just, people are just constantly like wrapped up in the hustle culture. And that third place, just I feel like we had a nice glimpse of it, and it just started shrinking more and more over time as social media and like being online filled up the rest. It's very interesting to look at it from like our perspective where we had a glimpse of it. Now it's kind of just very structured. Even doing something to socialize with other people, like a workout class or whatever, that's like a structured time frame. You're in and out. You're not really socializing too much with the people around you. It's very scheduled. I don't, does that make sense? That's kind of how I
Yeah.
feel
Oh,
about it.
yeah. Kind of like a side joke. I wish. No, I love everyone at my gym, but they do socialize a lot. I wish sometimes it's like some
I would
mornings.
focus a little more.
Yeah. Sometimes in some mornings I'm just like, I have to work too. You guys should go to work. It's like I
Right.
love
But that's
talking, but
also, that's great though that there is that
yeah.
sense of community, and I think that that's what is really important and is missing in a lot of aspects. I've gone to workout classes before where you might just talk with the person next to you like really casually and be nice, and then it's kind of like you do the workout class and you leave, but you don't actually
Hmm.
like hang around. You know, it's
Yeah.
very like get in, do your workout, get out. And it's really interesting because in the UK, I would say the bars are very popular for this. Like the local pub, people still go to the local pub to watch horse races. We kind of lost that. Like now I feel like if you're going to a bar, it's more so like you go and you stay with the people you came with or you whoever you're meeting up with. Not too much mingling going on anymore. And I also feel like these the co-working spaces, like local bookstores, gaming cafes, that's a way to like modernize it a little bit. But even I feel like at co-working spaces or local bookstores, it's very individual. Like you go in, you do your work, or you go in, you grab your book that you're buying, and then you kind of just roll out. So what makes them third places? I would say it's like a neutral ground, low commitment. Everybody can just kind of socialize with everyone. And like you said, there is that aspect of why it matters. And I think combating loneliness and isolation is one thing that's super important. And that's, I would say, something that's missing from all of. We have so many ways to communicate now that it actually seems like there's less communication, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. Like you're connected on Instagram, but you're not really like having a connection with them. It can definitely turn into a friendship. Like you and I met on Instagram,
Hmm.
which is awesome. And then we ended up being friends in real life. But there's definitely such a difference from like, you know, us talking on Instagram versus like us now hanging out, you know, it really, it's significantly different to be friends with somebody like online versus like in real life, you know, but they're saying like to foster that real world connection, provide a sense of identity and belonging outside of work and home roles. And that's another interesting topic. And then also to just continue to build different relationships. What do you think led to the decline of these third places?
I feel like I definitely see certain spaces, like so the mall, for example, I feel like that was like a big hit, and that's kind of like what got people together. And then same thing with specific bars, but I think as like economy is shifting, things are shifting, and then especially COVID. I think COVID was like a huge hit in all that, where local places closed, and then people's social skills went completely out the window. I think it was maybe I can see it like being on a slight decline, but I think like having COVID hit, it was like people forgot how to be human, like the 6 feet away thing, the isolation. And now I feel like globally it just turned people into, they just got used to that stay away from me type of feeling. And then they forgot how to like reopen all of that. And then the only things that survived were like chain restaurants, fast food places. Yeah, it's kind of like sad to think about. And then I think with COVID too, people focus so much on themselves. And the same thing is that I think having that loss of group, you cling to the identity, and most people cling to the identity that is their job. So if people aren't working, because a lot of people lost their jobs, understandably, but so if people are not working, if they're not hustling, same thing with hustle culture, like they feel so lost and they'd rather cling on to that and hold on to that little piece instead of being like, okay, no, like it's okay to socialize and like be out in our small like little town. Like it is okay
Mm-hmm.
to just kind of like live that small city life.
People forgot how to
Mm-hmm.
live their life. It actually was crazy to me to see what was going on, like how it made it okay to do everything virtually. That really affected people in terms of their ability to connect with others in person. And I think that you can order your food on Uber Eats, you can do all these things where you don't actually have to see a person. And that's really cutting out that interpersonal connection, which to people that are wrapped up in hustle culture may feel like, oh, it's not necessary. But I do think it is. And I think there's definitely been a rise of that leisure aspect and like living a private life versus like over public socializing. Oh, I don't need to go out to the store because I can just order whatever it is on Amazon and it gets here. And I am guilty of that, don't get me wrong. But that shift to focusing on digital, focusing on self-improvement. Like you said, that was a big trend. At that time, there was businesses that either did not flourish when switching to something that was online or really flourished. So business picked up for some people. And I think that if you were able to adapt with everybody's like state of going to virtual, you were able to really pick up and get a lot going. That probably led to a lot of hustle culture within those companies too. Something they also brought up was the lack of walkable spaces. Personally, like never really had a lot of walkable spaces though growing up, and I think we still went to a third place, like a public library, that you were out with other people, the mall, a local restaurant like that everybody goes to. There were still those places. Wouldn't necessarily say you have to live in like a big city to go to a third place, but I think it's a lot different now versus how it was then. Social media probably played a huge role in that. Some people have asked, can the internet be a third place? What do you think about that?
Ooh, that one is so tough because I see a lot of big influencers, especially fitness influencers, they make a digital community. And I have seen some benefit, especially in the fitness world, because it is hard for one person to manage all those clients. So I can imagine like having them to lean on each other, especially on them as well. I can see how that's a benefit. And then sometimes like they have meetups and they'll do runs and stuff like that. But sometimes I almost feel like, have you ever been to like those kind of events where like you see them on social media and then you go? So
Yeah.
it gets, to me, they're more awkward than the pictures show, because you go
Yeah.
in with the mindset that you really, it's not a natural thing because you meet on social media, and on social media we already put on a presentation. So then it's like you get there, then you also have to put on a presentation because people are taking pictures, they're taking videos. So then it's like, is that really a genuine third space, especially even though it's physical, it started with the internet. And I know a lot of people, like when they game, they do have like a lot of gaming friends and they bond over gaming as well. So that one is a tough thing to say because the conversations are very real. I do think, to me personally, if you don't have that physical space, like, I don't know, like, I feel like maybe it's different now because, again, when we were kids, right, to call your friend, we had to call the parents and be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, oh, like, hi, like, Miss Patel, can I please speak to Becca? Like, so we already had to have that interaction already, because nowadays, like, we don't, like, if we see a phone number we don't recognize, we don't even answer it. So I feel like back then, like, maybe that could have been a third space to a certain extent, but now it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, definitely. You can look at it from two ways. So I personally feel like if it's online solely and you're not in person interacting, I don't think it counts as a third place. I don't want to say that in a bad way because I do think people make friendships online, which is great. A third place isn't necessarily a strong in person connection with someone, it's more so a space where people can come and connect. A third place for me in terms of like gaming, I would see that as like a yestercade or a barcade where you go and you play these games but you're out with other people. Those in-person events that influencers and brands hold, I would consider those a third place because people are coming to them in person,
Mm-hmm.
they're gathering together. However awkward it may feel, you're still making that effort to go to one central location where other people are. I've been to some that have been really good. I've been to others that are like, wow, this is literally a show for Instagram, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
you go and it's like everything's really cute so that you could take a picture and post it. But there's also a difference in people on Instagram versus how they are in real life. And there have been some people that I thought were going to be so nice when I met them in real life and they were not. So obviously there are plenty of influencers that you'll meet that are very nice and it's great. But then there's other times where you go and you're like, oh wow, like I follow you, and they really just don't care. There's definitely the image that people put on online, and then when you meet them in person, it gives you that opportunity to see if they are really like that. I've gone to meetups before, like influencer meetups before, where it's gone really well and everybody was
Mm-hmm.
really nice. I don't know if that becomes a third place because it wasn't a repeat thing. Like I didn't go because I wanted to show up to that restaurant. I went because I was invited to an event. It's not like I'm going there to be like a social butterfly. I went there, I guess, to socialize, but I didn't. but I already kind of knew who was going to be there. It was like a planned thing. It wasn't like, let me just roll into the local bar for happy hour,
And just see who might,
see
yeah.
who might show up. That's the big difference. The third place is more casual, less planned. Like, hey, want to go to the mall and like loiter around the food court for a few hours? Like, that is like a third place versus we're all going to go to this place and hang out here at this time. And then, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's like a
Yeah.
difference. I feel like it should be more casual. So, what are some things that we can do to reclaim or rebuild those third places? Some of the ideas were supporting local businesses and community events, designing public spaces with intention. There's an opportunity here for a lot of brands because more and more people are going to start craving that in real life, in personal connection. And if you're someone listening to this that's trying to grow a business or a personal brand, offering in-person events could be a great opportunity to create a third place, at least for a day or however long your event is. It gives you the opportunity to offer that personal experience with your target audience or with your community to strengthen that because you're actually getting to introduce yourself in person and to talk and hang out. It creates longevity in terms of what you remember. In my personal situation, if I go on social media, there's a lot I won't remember from looking at. But if I actually go to an in-person event and I meet a bunch of bloggers in person, I'm going to remember them and their handle much more than I will by looking at other content creators online. That's a way you can kind of take a spin on it and use social media for good to create this opportunity. But what is like your third place, Lizzie? What would you say is an opportunity to maybe create an environment like this?
There is actually it's like a girls club that I saw recently. So I met the couple at a different event that I went to. So the difference with that event is kind of like you're saying, like those are kind of like a one-offs. Everyone plans to be here from this time to this time, and it's not going to happen like repeatedly. And what I've started to notice people doing, run club specifically for me, I feel like I probably wouldn't socialize because it's like if I'm running, I just want to be like, don't talk to me.
Right.
I'm probably dying on the
Right.
inside. Don't talk to me. Let me run. But they meet up somewhere, and then normally they drink after. So then my brain would be like, that's kind of counterproductive. But then it's like, oh, do we need to
Right.
run to drink? You could just drink.
Right.
But with the girls group, what they do is that they're planning frequent meetups and every activity is different. So I feel like they're kind of doing some like good inspiration with social media because obviously they have to promote on social media because they want to invite the whole local community, and they're constantly planning different meetups. So then that way people can look forward to a planned thing, but then also kind of like that third place. So I feel like that's a good hybrid mix. And I think that if we had local places where it's kind of hard because it's like I know with local places you don't want people to loiter because you also have to make money. And then you also don't want people drinking all day because then that's never good. So trying to find that balance. So I think that girls club is trying to find that very good mix. And yeah, just something downtown's not bad. I think our downtown Melbourne is trying to be a little bit better because it is some walking places. The parking's kind of a pain, and I know, especially with like the drinkers, like the roads are just not favorable, especially because there's a bunch of one ways. But hopefully with people taking pride in the community, and I think like the Creek kind of like ties this in, is that people do admire somewhat local, so it's almost like you had to take it away for them to be like, wait, no, we don't want to lose that local community, we don't want to lose that place to go line dancing. And they have those same thing, like they have those specific times where like people, maybe like whether people realize it or not, that line dancing could also be that nice third place because I feel like when people line dance, for some reason they're just a little bit more open. Like everyone loves to teach, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and it definitely helps to create that sense of community because you're all doing something like an activity it
Hmm.
breaks up the awkward, I guess, conversation if there is any.
Hmm.
Like, hey, how's it going? Like if you're line dancing or actively doing something, you're like talking to people. It does create that activity where you're all doing something that you like to do together without feeling forced to be there at a set time or a set schedule. So that is really nice about the Creek and other like local bars that people really connect on. I think I haven't had a chance to go yet, but it's awesome that they're creating these opportunities to do things that are all different. So if something isn't your cup of tea, you can go to a different type of event. I saw recently they did flower crown event and that
Oh,
looked
cute.
really cute. And I would like to go to one to see how it is. it gives you a good opportunity to connect with other people in the area and to not feel isolated and alone. Honestly, as you just get older, it's making friends can be not as easy. So I think having those opportunities is great. And it does create, I would say, a third place, even if it's just for an activity or for a
Mhm.
day. That is a space that you're going to, you don't know who's going to be there really. I mean, you could see who's invited, but you don't actually know the people until you meet them at the event. So it is creating that kind of like enjoyment for a little while, you know? I think it's really interesting how places in the UK, and this is what I've seen from my experience, there's a lot more out and about in terms of bar hopping and socializing. I know we still have that here with like downtowns and bars and clubs and stuff, but I think it's so much more embedded in their culture where like if they're done with work, they just walk right to the pub. And we I don't know. I think it's a good thing that we really all love to like hit the gym, take care of ourselves, do our nighttime skincare routines, like all of these things. But like from a health perspective, it makes sense to have like our, wind down routines and things like that. But that shake up in the schedule, I feel like isn't as common over here. People are like, you can't, it's, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and you're like just having dinner on Tuesday. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I was out and about after work, whatever. It's very different. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're like, oh, we'll just go do it. It's a weekday. Who cares? It doesn't matter that it's a weekday. Like, yeah, we have work the next day, but you don't want to just live for the weekend, you know?
Mhm.
And that seems to be a trend that I'm noticing, at least what I've kind of picked up on from my visits over there too, where it's different depending on where you are, but we seem to have a lot more structure on our day. And I know people go to happy hours and things like that after work, but it's definitely not like an everyday thing. I'm
Mhm.
not saying it should be an everyday thing, but we're all very conscious, I would say, of like where we're going, what we're consuming, how much money we're spending,
Mhm.
like all these things. So I think all that falls into it as well. So what do you think moving forward? Do you think that third places are going to come back? Do you think that people are going to crave that in-person connection, just kind of as we wrap up this episode? And then also, a part of this, I think it ties into a big theme of maybe digital detoxing and focusing on the importance of real world connection and community building in that way. There is definitely a big conversation we could have here about how you can utilize the third place to your advantage to grow a business, to tap into social media to spread the word about it, and then also to get started community building. So, yeah, what's your feedback on that?
What I've noticed in business especially is that I mean, granted that there's a lot of people that are successful with online businesses, but I know like starting off, having local community or like knowing people or having that in person, like people like that trust building. And I feel like as a society and as a culture, we're slowly building up that trust. So I'm hoping that we shift as a community as a whole, like back towards that togetherness, towards having whatever differences, but still being able to chat and just like have casual conversations. I think for whatever reason we forget to have just like basic conversations. Like it's okay to ask like how someone is. I know Florida for sure before COVID, oh gosh, everyone will talk your ear off left and
Yeah.
right. It's a little, I will say it's a little quieter than what I'm used to, but I hope that shift comes back. And like I said, like, people don't have to sit at the bar like all day. Like the bar doesn't have to be the only place that people kind of hang out. But I do hope that like those places, they are more fun when people come together just for like just common reasons as simple as like line dancing or playing pool or whatever it is. So I hope like those like spaces can kind of grow again, and it brings more like life back into the cities. And I hope that especially like and like I know we know that people spend so much time on social media and we identify with our social channels and all that, and I think that's what people get obsessed with, and it is very dopamine draining. So I hope that people take that shift and like remember to live in the now, live off their phones, and just remember that like real human interaction is okay, the good, the bad, the ugly, all everything in between. And as much as like we watch these influencers, like they meal prep Sunday and then they have this whole routine and it looks like they never ever ever speak to anybody except for like whenever they're at the gym, that there's like more to it. And I think that's what I think hope people can maybe open their eyes to, is that there's like a much vaster world that doesn't always have to be recorded and doesn't always have to
Mhm.
be like seen through our phones.
Right. Yeah. And the importance of just living in the moment while you are at those places. There's so much opportunity, I think, to create third spaces or third places that are not bars, like you said. That's
Mhm.
a really great point. There's been a shift away from that bar scene because, to be honest, it didn't, I think for maybe generations above us, it was a place where people would do a lot of socializing together. But then as the generations have gone on, we've gone and we've been very, it's very like clicky when you go to bars sometimes. So you kind of stay with who you're with. There's definitely places, like you said, down in Florida where people are very social and it's great. But there are a lot that aren't like that. So I think people might feel not as connected when they go to those places, or maybe they just don't feel like going and drinking. So I think having the opportunity to go and do activities at a central place is a great opportunity for that third place and to keep that third place going. So this is a really interesting conversation. I think there's so much more we can talk about when it comes to third places and really just the importance of them. Like I said, the sociologist Ray Oldenburg coined the term to really describe places that aren't work or home. So you want to think about maybe spending more time at a local coffee shop, a local park, a bookstore, a community space where you will maybe run into people that have similar interests as you. A really easy way to get started, and this is something I like to do, is I love to compliment people. So if I'm out and you could tell when a girlie like put her outfit together or did her nails or whatever it is, and just passing that nice compliment along to someone will really brighten their day. It'll make them feel good, it'll make you feel good, and that's just a really easy way to start to build that sense of community wherever you are. So if you are at a coffee shop and you do compliment the person behind you, or you do hold the door open and say a few things like nice things, or you do just ask someone how their day is going. And these interactions, even whether it's like a Facebook Marketplace transaction or whatever it is, just being nice to someone and having a conversation with them or offering a compliment, it goes a long way and it stays with them for a while. And I think little steps like that can lead us into getting back into that place where we had a third space where people were just more open and casual and nice with people. So in the third places, that's where connections happen casually and without pressure. I think we need them now more than ever. I see it so much from the social media end, but I also see a lot of great opportunity from the business end. So if you're a business owner listening to this, there's a lot of opportunities here, and you could really use this as a way to build your community, to get people out and about more often, and to do something that's different. This would be like a disruptor in the space. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. And thank you, Lizzie, for joining me to talk about this really fun topic. I think talking about things like this, like sociology and all of these ideas that really do tie into consumer purchasing, make a huge difference when it comes to your overall marketing strategy. We're looking at it here from our own influencer and content creator lens. And if you're looking to grow your personal brand or your business, this could be a great opportunity for you, especially as it seems like there's such a push more and more into digital and AI and all these things that it's almost different to be in person.
Mhm.
Just some food for thought there. But thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate it if you rated and reviewed or subscribed on YouTube. I'll catch up with you all on next week's episode. Does the same time work for you?